When it comes to this offseason, most Detroit Lions fans have only one major thing on their wish list, and it's to get much more help when it comes to the pass rushing element. Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about what could absolutely be described as a wrecking machine. Stay tuned, everybody. It's about to get exciting.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. Folks, I can tell you this right now. Obviously, we're at this point in the offseason where there's not really much else to do. The Super Bowl is literally right around the corner. That's going to end the NFL season. The college football season has already been done, dead, and over with. And honestly, from here until, free agency and the draft, there's nothing but a whole bunch of speculation. There's nothing but a whole bunch of, okay, what exactly are we going to see happen here? And that's where this game of cat and mouse really kind of comes into play, not only for us podcasters trying to figure out what it is everybody's trying to think about as far as what they're wanting to talk about, what is, absolutely newsworthy. So there's that aspect of it. But at the same time, for all of us, not just podcasters, it's like, okay, what are our teams that we're fans of, what are they doing? What are they going after? What news nuggets can we find that can give us a little bit of an indicator of where they're thinking about going? Now, for the Detroit Lions, this has probably gotten both easier and harder in the same sense over the last couple of years, and I'll tell you why. The reason why is because in one sense, the Lions have definitely gotten more talented across the board. So it's like, okay, here, it's not like you're trying to throw darts at multiple areas and you're trying to get them all improved. You can now become very specific about certain areas that you're trying to improve at. Well, at the same time, because you're now getting very specific about a certain area, now you have to start getting much more specific about where you want to go within that specific area. Hence the reason why with this episode, we're talking about edge rushers. Because I can speak for just about damn near every Lions fan, even the ones that might not even be the most, I dare say, committed. They're wanting to see Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions make some sort of investment in a top-end edge rusher. And quite frankly, they don't care how it's done. They don't care if it's done through the trade, they don't care if it's done through free agency, and they don't care if it's done through the draft. They want to see something done on one of those three fronts. Now, in this episode, I'm going to pretty much put it out there. I do not think it's going to happen via the trade market. I especially don't think it's going to happen via the free agency market. And I'm going to tell you why. Simply put, edge rushers like that just do not become available. I've already talked about it before, but edge rushers like that just do not become available. They are very, very highly sought after. They're very highly coveted. And on top of that, they're very damn expensive. Because whether or not people want to acknowledge it or not, if you decide to trade for somebody, you first have to trade draft capital, and then you've got to sign them to a contract most likely, because typically if they're on the trade market, it's because of one of two reasons. Either they're discontent with their current contract, or they're wanting a new one, or their contract is about to become, extinct, like it's about to end, and they're looking for a new contract, and the team's like, well, this is what we're willing to pay you, and the player's like, no, I feel like I earn more. So typically when you're talking about a trade option, you're going to have to pay a double whammy for that one. And in the free agency market, well, let's just call it for what it is. You're competing with every other team that's going after their services, which the nature of a good edge rusher being so rare and so hard to find means you're virtually going to be contending with about 5, 6, 7, 8 other people that are saying, hey, we would like you to come and play for us. And now it comes down to, okay, what does your team have to offer? Are you a contender or not? How much money are you willing to give? How much signing bonus and all these other factors? It's just much more simply cheaper, faster, and easier to go via the drafting route, because in the draft, one, typically you only have to give up one draft pick unless you're trading up to get into that draft slot. And 2, you're not really having to contend a whole lot when it comes to the contract, because since there's the bargaining agreement, contracts for the most part are pretty much laid out based upon your draft point selection. So let's talk about it from that perspective. The Lions are going to have a multitude of options in the draft to potentially go after a guy to, pair with Hutch and Za'Darius. Now, I already know that there are already players out there, or sorry, not players. There are already fans out there that have players in their mind as preconceived options. And you know what? That's totally fine. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Chances are I'm going to talk about that player here or there once upon a time, whatever the case might be. And chances are you're probably not going to agree with some of the things I have to say. But for today's episode, I'm going to talk about who I think is the best option, because I always like to talk about the best, most surefire option in my opinion, and then kind of spread myself out from there. That's just the way I like to do things. So for me, what do I think, who do I think is the best option for the Detroit Lions in the draft from an edge rushing perspective? AKA, I believe that is Ohio State University edge rusher Jack Sawyer. Now, I know for some people this is going to be a bit of a hot button topic, not even because of the fact I'm talking about Jack Sawyer, but just because of the fact I'm talking about Ohio State University. Because I know I got a lot of Lions fans that are also U of M fans, and when it comes to U of M and Ohio State, it's like trying to mix oil in water. It just don't go together. But let me just call it for what it is, folks. You take a look at all the edge rushers that are out there in this draft class that I would consider at least first-round prospects. When it comes to that class, Jack Sawyer, he just kind of fits the bill for the Lions, and I'm going to tell you why. First and foremost, Jack Sawyer is a damn good combo of size, speed, and power. This is a guy that knows how to get after people. He knows how to have a high motor. He just does his job, and he does it very well. And, well, let's call it for what it is. Even though you might not like Ohio State, which I myself don't, I'm a Michigan State fan. I'm not a U of M fan, but I'll say this. I don't care if it's U of M or Michigan State. I don't care who it is. I will root against Ohio State every day. But regardless of my personal feelings on Ohio State, I know this much about Ohio State. It's a high pedigree program. And wait a minute here. Where have I heard this before? You got a guy who is a good combo of size, speed, and power. He comes from a high pedigree program. He's got a high-end motor that doesn't seem to quit. Gee, why does this sound like Hutch? Oh, here's how it does. I'm not saying that Jack Sawyer is Hutch 2.0. Don't get that confused. What I am going to say, though, is that Sawyer does have some traits that definitely scream of a Hutch 2.0. Because I've said this before, I'll say this again, and I've talked about it with quarterbacks. You're never going to find a true carbon copy replica of somebody that you've already got. Everybody's unique. Aiden Hutchinson is Aiden Hutchinson. You ain't going to find another one. So as such, Jack Sawyer is Jack Sawyer. You're not going to find another one. So when we're talking about Jack Sawyer, one thing I can say about Jack Sawyer that is probably going to be a turnoff for some people as far as the production standpoint is that Jack Sawyer has never had a double-digit season in terms of sacks while he was at college. Whereas when we had Hutch, in the very last season he was in college, 2021, he had a double-digit sack season. I think it was like 14 sacks or something. But here's what I will say. Even though Sawyer doesn't have that one season of where it's like, oh, you have 10 plus sacks or more, which is kind of like the gold standard when you're talking about edge rushers, the one thing Sawyer does have that Hutch did not have while he was in college is more consistent growth and production in terms of sack quality. When you take a look at Sawyer, he started in 2021 and he produced 3 sacks. Then in 2022, it went to 4.5 sacks. In 2023, it went to 6.5 sacks. And this last season, it went to 9. So literally every single year that he's been in college at Ohio State, he's gotten more production in being a pass rushing specialist. So that's how much he's done. He's got 23 sacks in total over his collegiate career. But I also know that it's not just about sacks when we're talking about edge rushers. It's your ability to get into the backfield. It's your ability to apply pressure. It's your ability to get, these tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Speaking of that, those are called tackles for loss. If you take a look at his tackles for loss while in college, again, for the most part, you're going to see an increase in production every single year. The only time that was not the case was his junior to senior year, but pretty much it was the exact same production. 2021, senior year, he has 3. 2022, he has 7. 2023, he has 10. And then his last season, he has 9. So again, you're talking about consistent production growth, except for that last year when pretty much it just stayed the same. So he finished his collegiate career with 23 sacks and 29 tackles for loss. That's not pretty bad, folks. That's actually pretty dang good, considering the fact that most edge rushers don't really get a good chance to actually start showing what they can do, especially at a top-notch program like a U of M, like an Ohio State, or any of those other top-notch programs, until typically like their junior year. Well, let's think about it from this perspective, folks. That's what Sawyer did in his 4 years. How did Hutch do? Now, mind you, I'm going to put this out there. Hutch only played 43 games at Michigan because of the fact that in one of the seasons, he got a severe injury. Sawyer, on the other hand, played a total of 54. So there's an 11-game difference there in terms of how much time Sawyer got to play versus how much time Hutch got to play. Hutch, in the 43 games, however, was able to produce 18.5 sacks and 28 tackles for loss. So, okay here. Even though Hutch had less games, he pretty much had the same amount of tackles for loss, and he was only, maybe about 4 or 5 sacks short of Sawyer. My whole point is this. If you're just looking from a production standpoint, yes, Sawyer has more, but Sawyer also had 11 more games. But the point of the matter is that the production, for the most part, is going to be almost right on top of each other as far as what these guys were able to do in college. But what I'm trying to get across here is this. College is one thing. I want to take a look at everything in terms of college before we start getting into, okay, why do I think that this guy, Jack Sawyer, is the best fit for the Lions? Number one, other than the fact that he's the best, I think, combination of size, speed, strength, and everything else out of all the edge rushers in the class, I like the fact that if you take a look at his in-depth analytics, you will literally see growth from his junior year to his senior year, which is, as I just stated, for most edge rushers, those are going to be the 2 years where they're going to really be able to show off what they can do. We'll take a look at it. If you take a look at Jack Sawyer's pressure rate from 2023 to 2024. In 2023, his pressure rate was at a 17.9%. It was tied 31 out of all edge rushers. And now, how did I come up with that number? For me, I'm like, listen, I don't give a hoot and handy about every edge rusher that's ever played. I want guys that are on the field a decent amount of time. So if you go to PFF, there's an option where it says minimum rushing attempts. I put 20% out of however many maximum attempts there are, because to me it's like, okay, you need to be able to be on the field for at least a semi-decent amount of those. And that was the 20% mark that I used across every single parameter. So in 2023, out of a 20% threshold, he was ranked 31st, tied 31st actually, at 17.9%. In 2024, it jumped up to 19.2%, which was tied 25th. Now again, let's understand something here. There's 150, 160 other teams in the NCAA, and they've at least got 2 edge rushers. So what is that? 150 times 2 is 300. So the fact that he's in the top 25, don't discredit that because, he's not top 10. Screw that thought process. The fact that he's in the top 25 when there's like 300 guys that are competing, let that say something. And when you take a look at his other areas, such as his overall defensive grade, his overall pressures, his overall QB hits, you see that progression, you see that growth from the junior to senior year in every single category. Sometimes it's a little bit more, pronounced than others, but it's still growth. You take a look at the defensive grade. In 2023, he was ranked 89.8, which was the 6th best in the entirety of the NCAA for edge rushers. In 2024, the grade itself went up to a 90.2, though the ranking dropped to 10. So it's like, okay, I call that pretty much a wash overall, but still, 89.8 to a 90.2, that's still progress, even though it is minuscule. You take a look at the amount of pressures he had. In 2023, he had 30 pressures, which was tied 91st. In 2024, this most recent year, he had 50, which put him just outside of top 10. QB hits, virtually about the same thing. He had 9 in 2023, that was tied for 23rd. In 2024, he jumped up to 13, which put him in top 5. So again, my whole point here, again, with the analytics, with the statistics, is you're seeing growth. You're seeing progress, which is what you want to see, especially from a guy that is at such a high-end program like Ohio State from the junior to the senior year. Now, there's obviously more to this conversation than just statistics, than just obviously analytics. Here's another reason why I like Sawyer more so than virtually any other edge rusher in this draft class. If you take a look at Sawyer's film, this is a guy that has shown ability, outstanding ability, to play either out of the 2-point stance or the 3-point stance. This is a guy that can play either with his hand in the ground or standing up. That is going to really play both. That's really going to pay dividends for him when he gets to the NFL, because there are some guys that can only do one or the other really well. He can do both. And furthermore, let's also understand something. Having played at Ohio State University, he's been exposed to playing some of the best talent and opponents that are in the NCAA. Again, for me, it's like, okay, I know that there are other guys out there that have really much better numbers and analytical numbers than what Jack Sawyer have, a.k.a. a Mike Green. But Mike Green, which I know is one thing a lot of people are going to be asking about me from this episode. Oh, well, what about Mike Green? What are your thoughts on him? I'm going to be honest with you. Mike Green, I've got some concerns with, and I will talk about them in another episode. But I'm not going to just completely discredit him. I'm just going to simply say I have my concerns with him. But when we take a look at Jack Sawyer from Ohio State, he's played against some of the best competition that's in the NCAA. He plays against Michigan every single year. He plays against Texas. He plays against Oregon. He plays against the best of the best in the NCAA, and he's done rather well. So it's like, okay, that tells me that going from the college level to the NCAA level, he should do a lot better than, say, somebody who comes from a, lower end, tier 1 college. But here's the other reason why I like Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer, during his time at Ohio State, showed that he is not only solely just an edge rusher. He can play edge, he can play defensive end, but while he was at Ohio State, he also played in Jim Knowles' defense as the jack position. Now, what exactly does that mean? One of the things you have to know about Ohio State's defense, especially with Jim Knowles in charge, is that they have a position that is called a jack position. The jack position, in essence, it's a wild card position. It's a design position that has the flexibility to flex from a defensive end edge rusher to an outside linebacker role, or just a regular linebacker role, depending upon the situation. But the whole intent and purpose of the position itself is to specifically create chaos at the line of scrimmage. Pretty much this guy has the ability to do just about damn near anything you want him to do. He is a jack of all trades. Funny I put that out there. Jack Sawyer, jack of all trades. That's kind of funny. But the point of the matter is, the serious point here is that this is a guy that has shown that, hey, he has a lot of flexibility inside of a defense. You can post him, you can put him, You can post him on the edge. You can put him as a defensive end. You can put him as a linebacker. You can have him out there and let him read the offense and make that determination, and he will most likely figure it out. But the whole point of the matter is that jack position tells me one simple thing about Jack Sawyer. He is very good at being a disruptor. If you're going to play a jack position, which the whole intent and purpose of that position is to create chaos, hey, that tells me something. You have to have an ability to be a disruptor to opposing offenses. Which, wait a minute here, what is the full intent and purpose of an edge rusher? To be a disruptor when it comes to opposing offenses' passing attacks. You want to make that quarterback uncomfortable. Well, if you literally have a position that you are specifically designed to play for, at least for 1 year in 2022, and you did pretty well at it, That right there already's got my ears popping up. It's already got my, attention, because it's like, okay, here. We're wanting a guy that can clearly be a disruptor. We're wanting a guy who can clearly get after the quarterback. So for me, it's like, I already like what I'm hearing. But there's one final thing about Jack Sawyer that I truly, truly like about him. Other than the fact that Jack Sawyer is coming from a high pedigree program like Ohio State, again, the growth is another thing that I have harped on a high amount in this episode. Again, another area that PFF has that shows this is what they have is called as their pass rush productivity, their PRP. Excuse me. If you take a look at 2023, his first year as a full-time starter as an edge rusher wasn't too particularly good for him as far as a total pass rushing productivity note. He only had a 6.9. which is tied 223. Remember what I said? There's like 300 edge rushers out of 150, 160 damn freaking programs. So yeah, he was towards near the bottom. But notice how far he jumped from 2023 all the way up to 2024. He goes from a 6.9 being tied 223rd to a 10.8 being tied 26th in 2024. Let that tell you something. The jump he had from one year to the next is massive. Now, the final thing I want to say here before I wrap this up. Like I said, this guy's a wrecking machine. And again, where is he coming from? Ohio State University, also known as defensive end edge rushing university. Because think about the guys that have just come from Ohio State over the most recent years. The Bosa brothers, Chase Young. These are all guys that have had good careers in the NFL. So for me, it's like, okay, not only do you have a college pedigree, but you're coming from a college that's been known to churn out good edge rushers. So to me, it's like, okay, pair him alongside Smith, pair him alongside Hutch. You can not only have him learn in a practical matter of actually playing, but you can also have him be mentored by those two guys, so you're getting a double effect. Plus, on top of that, when you've also got this new defensive line coach that has shown a propensity for making great decisions in that department, that makes me even further happy. That's what I'm saying. That's why I like Jack Sawyer the most. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past, forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all please to hit that subscribe button and also to hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content. Please share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. And with that, I just want to say to everybody, hope y'all enjoyed the content. Whether it's your first time watching me, if you guys have been watching me for a long time, hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.